And now, coming at you from the 5-Star Physique Studio in Knoxville, Tennessee, this is The Drop Set. With your host, Darren Starr.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I am Darren Starr and I'm a full-time online prep coach and have been since 2012. You can check me out at 5starphysique.com and read about my coaching programs, check out workout programs that I have available, read articles, and most importantly, you can click on the podcast button at the top or go straight to thedropset.com to vote on the most recent poll question posted at the top of the page. It is really kind of hard to believe that I've been doing this since December of 2016, but here we are, we're over 200 episodes in and we're still kicking. It's crazy stuff. Now this show thrives on and exists only because of you, the listener. So I thank you for being here and also encourage you to contribute your questions and discussion topics. You can email me at darren@5starfitness.com, or more easily, click on contact from 5starphysique.com and submit your question in the form. You can also find me on social media at Darren_Star on Instagram is probably the best way to go there. Please also give a rating, like, thumbs up, review, or whatever is appropriate for whatever platform you're listening to this on. And please share the episodes you like and tag me in your posts. I appreciate it tremendously, and it helps us here reach a bigger audience, which makes it more likely that I can nab higher profile guests for future interviews. So, with that being said, let's get on with it. Hey everybody, how are we doing? Welcome to The Drop Set. This is episode 209. I'm trying something a little different today. So if it sounds different in podcast land, it's because I'm now waving hello to everybody in YouTube land. And I'm trying to record all of this stuff together, and we'll kind of see how it works. So I don't know that there's a lot of value in me doing a video podcast when it's just me talking to the computer screen, but I see a lot of radio shows out there, like talk radio shows that simulcast live, like they stream it on the web. I don't see a lot of value in that either, but they get a lot of eyeballs, so I'm like, why not? So more ways that people can listen to this, I'm all about it. Now, if people do watch the video version of this, it does mess with my podcast listening stats a little bit, because supposedly that's poaching a listener that would be listening to the audio-only stream. Whatever, I'm not really too worried about that. So, hey, how are you doing? It's good to have you back here. As you can see, this is my setup. Here we are. So I positioned the camera up a little bit just because I wanted to get it out of my face just a little bit. So I might look up to you and wave and gesture a little bit, but mostly I'm going to be looking at my screens here. And I also wanted to make sure you could see Derby right there. So for those listening, my little dog is really fucking cute. So Derby. Yeah, she don't really care. She will sit there until, like, I don't know if my wife said she got a text from the guy who does our yard, and so that's an indication he might be showing up today. And if so, there will be a little bit of a bark apocalypse. And if that happens, I will probably stop things and resume later. So let's get right to it here. There's a lot of things that I want to talk about today, and I'm just going to kind of ramble on here for a bit. And we're going to start. I'm going to recap my time away. We did drop an episode last week. That was my interview with Wendy Levra, which was great. If you haven't listened to that, episode 208, go check it out. You can also watch it here on YouTube as well. So really good. I'm thankful to her for her time. She was very generous with that. So always looking for more interviews, because they're always, I always get a lot of feedback from those. People have indicated that they want more just like general episodes, kind of like what I do here, but I got to listen to where the feedback comes from. And whenever I have interviews, I always get a lot of feedback on those, more so than anything else usually. So, and it's overwhelmingly positive. So actually, most of it is. I don't get a lot of negative feedback, which I think the people that would normally say that, they just know I'm a fragile creature and they don't want to break my spirit, so they just keep it to themselves. But I can take it. If there's something that I can do to make this better, let me know. But be gentle, please. Don't say, yeah, you need to replace yourself with somebody else who actually knows how to edit a podcast or host one or talk on camera. That'd be good too. Like, ooh, that's pretty harsh. I don't know if I could take that. So cushion it a little bit if you could. So I wanted to give a recap on my week away, some travel woes for y'all to relish that it wasn't you. And then we're going to kind of gracefully transition from that into a topic that is relevant for me right now, which is how do you bounce back from a week off like that? And I have some thoughts on that, and I can share my own personal experience right now as well. So, and then there are a few questions and other topics that I wanted to cover as well. So we'll see what we get to here. I won't spoil anything right now because at this point, I don't know how far down this list I'll get. Maybe I will spend the entire thing ranting about Allegiant Airlines, which is entirely possible. That could be what the next 45 minutes are all about here. So it does remind me of a new survey question that I have online. So let's go over that. Let's talk about the results from the last one here. Let's see. I was asking, what's your go-to method of cardio? Now, this one has been up for several weeks, and it managed to garner 21 votes. Ooh, wow. Epic voting here. Thank you. To the 21 people, I would say 20 because I was one of them. To the 20 other people who voted, thank you for going. For the rest of you out there, get off your ass and go vote, please. That's the not terribly diplomatic way of trying to drive traffic to the website, but please. What's your go-to method of cardio? Most people, 16 out of 21, said machine. So bike, treadmill, elliptical, stairs, etc. A couple people said running outside. A couple people said Metcon work. Those are the psychopaths. I want to identify you people so that we know to avoid you, because if that's your preferred method of cardio, y'all crazy. And 0 people, one person said other. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know, vigorous sex maybe. I don't know. And 0 people said classes, which is great because I freaking hate group classes. I know a lot of people, they really dig the community aspect of stuff like that. I absolutely do not. I tend to dislike the community aspect of most everything, but especially working out. Like, I want to do that by myself with nobody else around, please, but not at a home gym. I want to be in a commercial gym where I'm the only person in there. That would be ideal. So anyway, the new question that I have up is, where is it? Here it is. What are your thoughts on extended breaks, more than 2 consecutive days from training? Some people may quarrel with my definition of an extended break there. That's fine. If you want to quarrel with it, make your own podcast, put up your own survey questions. That's how I'm defining it here. So what are your thoughts on extended breaks, more than 2 consecutive days from training? And I'm going to force your hand here. I'm only giving you 2 options. So which one of these is more correct? You dread time away from the gym, or you look forward to those breaks? And this would be something like, I would say maybe not related to injury. Like if you are having a surgical procedure done or something like that, and you're supposed to be out of the gym for 3 to 4 weeks. Well, you're not necessarily looking forward to that, right? But for vacation, for me, I will tell you how I'm answering here. I look forward to those breaks because I work pretty hard, and when I get an opportunity for a break, I take it and I enjoy it. Because it's a chance to physically recover. It's a chance to come back and ideally perform a little bit better than you were before, and just enjoy some time away. Get out of the routine so you can get back into it. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people that I talk to, like on vacation, they're panicking. They're taking a trip, they're traveling, it's a vacation or whatever. I don't know what to do about missing some days. What do I do? Do I need to find a gym? Like, well, maybe, but you could just take some time off too. I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to work with, majority of the people that I work with are really, really passionate about getting their workouts in. And for me, I like to encourage those people, like, take some time off, enjoy it. When you are somebody who wants to go, oftentimes forcing yourself to go a little less frequently, take some more rest days, focus more on your recovery, both long-term and short-term, is a better thing. But that being said, don't let me color your answer here. I want to know. I don't want to make anybody feel bad if they're voting that they dread time away from the gym. That's okay. Be yourself. And you might be in a position where I dread time away from the gym, but I force myself to do it anyway, or I still take the opportunities just because I know I'll get some kind of a benefit out of it. You will. So anyway, I feel like I've colored everybody's answer on that, but there you go. So you can go to thedropset.com. Several people have reported that they have trouble finding it there, but if you just go to thedropset.com, Or you can go to 5starphysique.com and click on podcast. It's the same thing. You have the menu bar, then there's a black bar up at the top of the, so down below that, which is where the page actually starts in the main section. So there's a sidebar that has like subscribe links, etc. But the main section, it says Drop Set Podcast with Darren Starr, subscribe, and there's 4 little buttons. The survey is right below that. I mean, it's very close to the top of the page, so it should be very easy to find. So that'll be up here by the time you are listening to or watching this. So my vacation, what happened? Well, let's see. We had a flight from Knoxville to Boston, and it was on Allegiant Airlines. And Allegiant has a reputation as being a budget airline or an a la carte airline where you pay for your ticket and then everything else is separate beyond that. So like your ticket lets you on the plane, but it doesn't give you a seat. You have to pay extra for a seat. You want a carry-on bag, you got to pay extra for that. You want a checked bag, you got to pay extra for that. No complimentary drinks, everything you pay for. Also, I would say their airplanes have the worst seats ever, and they don't recline. So they also have the most pissant little tray tables that fold down. They're about the size of a Kindle. They're just ridiculously small, just stupid. So if you're trying to like do work, good luck finding USB ports or power. Give me a break. No. If they were there, they'd have a credit card swiper on them, so you'd have to pay to charge your phone. So that's fine. You know what you're getting when you get on there. So our tickets were not budget priced at all. So I don't feel like we really saved any money going to Allegiant. So in Knoxville Airport, again, the Knoxville Airport, Tyson McGee, small little airport. It's 10 gates, right? It's nothing significant. So you walk in there and like if there's a giant line at the TSA security checkpoint, giant for Knoxville as I think like 75 people, and it moves pretty quick usually anyway. We have pre-check now, so I'm like, and so far every time that I've flown with pre-check, I have gotten into a pre-check line where the normal line has maybe 5 people in it. So I've never really gotten the opportunity to be like, aha, yeah, sticking it to y'all. More on that later. But we have to check a bag. So we didn't do carry-ons. We're just like, hey, let's just check a bag and have less to haul around the airport with us. And we'll just have our personal item, which my wife had a little backpack. I had my little laptop shoulder bag, which had my laptop, charger, headphones, Kindle. That's about it. So, so we had those bags and we had our check bags. So we walk into the airport and all of the airline counters to check a bag are empty except for the Allegiant one, which had somewhere between 150 and 200 people in it. And immediately I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay, this is going to be a problem. Because I'm looking at it immediately. I'm like, is this line going to move fast enough for us to actually make the plane? And, with Allegiant, boarding starts 45 minutes prior to departure. So I'm like, okay, the plane is definitely going to be boarding by the time we get out of this lane. But we'll see what happens. So it's moving. It's slow. And by the time we get to the front of the line, it's about 40 minutes prior to boarding. So they started boarding 5 minutes prior. This is important. With Allegiant, they stop accepting checked bags for a flight when boarding starts. Just let that sink in for a minute. Not the ramifications of that, which are pretty obvious here. And by the way, they do not bend that rule, no matter how much you threaten people and yell at people. Which was not us. There were other people in our situation as well. And the situation got kind of ugly. Man, what a dumb policy that is. Like every other airline, like if you're going to let me on the plane, you'll put my bag on the plane too, right? For some reason, Allegiant is so incompetent or incapable of handling their logistics correctly that they feel the need to shut off accepting checked bags 45 minutes prior to the plane pulling away from the gate. Why? I think because they're just assholes and they enjoy being shitty to people. I can't think of another reason why when every other airline is able to pull it off, or they're just so incompetent and their logistics are so bad that that's the best they can do. And it's really, the point is like, if you had one more person manning this check bags counter when, it's going out the door, then suddenly the line's moving fast enough and this is a non-issue. Like if you just don't have people waiting around forever, like I missed the deadline because your line was moving too fucking slow because you're not staffing this appropriately. So anyway, we get there and like, yep, we're not taking your bags. So, we can rebook you for Thursday, 5 days later, 4 days later. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't help us. That doesn't help us. You can go fuck yourself. Thank you. And I mean, just talk about a woman that did not give a fuck. I'm talking about the woman behind the counter. She did not care at all. Like no sympathy, no apology, no consideration about bending the rules. No, let me see if I can call somebody. Just like, nope, next. Like, wow, fuck you, right? 6 waves from Sunday. Holy crap. So I'm like, immediately like, well, I guess we go home and sit on the couch and cuddle up with our dogs instead of leaving them for a week. And, and my wife, to her credit, she took a beat. Like she's like, nope, here's what we're going to do. And so this is what we did. We sprinted back out to our car in the parking garage. We ditched our bags. We pulled whatever we could. We took about 13 seconds to pull whatever we deemed to be essential out of those big bags and put them in our personal item that we had to carry on our shoulder or on our back. And so like we each grabbed our toiletry bag and I grabbed like a pair of pants and a pair of socks and that was it. And then just the clothes I was wearing, that was what we went up to New England with. And so then we sprinted back, got through security and got to our gate with about 7 minutes to spare. And we're huffing and puffing. We were not the last people on the plane, but we were pretty damn close. And then, that was it. That's how vacation started. So, exciting, right? Yeah. So then to make a fun day even funner, the flight was uneventful. I think it took, the first half of the trip. I think we were somewhere over Virginia by the time our heart rates kind of settled back down a little bit. So we land, we get off the plane, we get, there's a shuttle in Boston Logan Airport that has to take you to the rental car center. We wait for that shuttle to show up for 30 minutes before it shows up. Oh my God. And meanwhile, I'm just like, holy shit. You're looking for one specific bus to show up. Every other bus in the entire airport shows up first. The lineup, we were the only people there when it started. And by the time the shuttle actually showed up, there were about 70 people there waiting for it. Like, oh my God. All right. We barely get on it. And then I tell my wife, I'm like, okay, as soon as we're done here, I'm sprinting off. Look for me at the Alamo counter. As soon as we land at the rental car center, I'm running in there to get ahead of all these people so I'm not waiting behind these assholes in line. And so I did that and I beat everybody that was on our bus to the Alamo line, which was already about 40 people deep. And if you've ever been in a rental car line, you know that those are some of the slowest moving lines ever. So we're in that line for, 50 minutes thereabouts or so. Finally get up to there, and I'm expecting them to say they didn't have my reservation or something like that. No, they had it. All right, cool. So I'm in and out of that counter in record time once I get up there. And then they say, okay, so go over there up the escalator to level 3, and that's where your car will be waiting for you. Well, ideally, you get up to level 3, and what's waiting for you? Another line, 40 people deep, waiting for their car. They have their reservation slip. They're just waiting for their car because Alamo/National, who are working together and sharing space here, are out of cars. And so as they come in and as they get them cleaned and washed and brought back down, then they send a new person out to the car. So, a couple people in front of us are like, what kind of car do you have? Compact? How about this Mustang convertible? Is that okay? Because it was all they had for people. I'm like, all right. It was one person who had a full-size car, got a Maserati. I'm like, fuck. All right, cool. So I'm rolling up. I'm like, all right, what do we get? Well, we got a Jeep Compass. All right. So anyway, that was another 30 minutes. It was over 2 hours from when we landed in Boston until we were driving out of that airport with our car. Oh my God. And I hadn't eaten anything all day long. To say that I was unpleasant to be around would have been a little bit of an understatement. So, that's how vacation got started. From there, it was all better. We didn't have any issues beyond that. We went to, we had a hotel outside of Boston. We stayed there, spent a couple of days going to Salem and, in seeing and experiencing all of the craziness that is Salem, Massachusetts, leading into Halloween. Holy crap. That's a shit show, man. I mean, it's cool, but what a mass of people. Holy cow. What we did a harbor cruise out of Salem Harbor, which was great. And then we drove up to Maine, and we stayed in Saco, Maine, outside of Portland, just a little to the south of it, which is a beach town. And I didn't realize, but in Maine, those towns really fill up during the summer. It's a seasonal town. I did not realize that. It was described to me as a sleepy little fishing village. But no, it's where we were staying, at least, and maybe more inland. That's how you would describe it. But where we were staying, it's a beach town, like it's a vacation spot. And we got there in October. It was shut the fuck down. there was nothing open. We had to go into the main part of town to find anything that was open at all, which was a fun realization on our part. But we were staying in an Airbnb there, and our host had some options for us, which worked out well. We did spend a day in Portland. We did another harbor cruise there, which was cool. Ate at a couple cool spots. And then the next day we went up, and I really wanted to go see Acadia National Park, but it was a 3.5 hour drive from our Airbnb. So it's 3.5 hours, and then do whatever you want to do at the park, and then 3.5 hours back. I was like, oh my God. It was just, we didn't do that. So instead we took Highway 1, which was the scenic route up to, probably about halfway to Acadia, and just stopped through some little towns in Maine and saw the sights and ate at some spots and took some pictures and did some cool stuff and came back down after that. And then our final day we spent, we drove back, ditched our car at the airport, took an Uber to Seaport, which is in East Boston. And had a hotel there and just kind of walked around. We took a train into town, walked around Boston Commons and Beacon Hill, I think is the place, right? And just saw some stuff around there. We were exhausted, so we gave up early and surrendered and went back to the hotel and chilled, and then just had a meal within walking distance for dinner. And then hit the airport the next morning. We were good to go. The more on the TSA part that I mentioned earlier, Boston did not have a TSA line coming back, and it was a huge security line that we were not able to skip, which was really annoying. So, sorry, they did not have a pre-check line. So that was obnoxious, but it was a mess. Oh, one thing I forgot is when we were staying outside of Boston, one of the first couple of nights, we did take a trip down to Providence, Rhode Island, which was, hour and a half, something like that, south. And at the Providence Zoo, they were having this jack-o'-lantern spectacular, which is this thing that you walk through with all these carved pumpkins. It's at night, so it's all dark. All the pumpkins are lit up, and it's set to music, and it's this experience. There were somewhere between 10 and 15,000 pumpkins carved in that place. It was the most batshit crazy, insane thing I've ever seen. It was nuts. Totally nuts. Never seen anything like that before. Way too many people, whole bunch of kids, families, etc. So you had a lot of people to wade through, and it was very much like my wife and I were walking through it. We got separated, and then by the time we see each other, there's like 15 people in between us who were waving and trying to get caught back up. It's like you get moved into a sea of people, and you get separated a little bit. It was one of those kind of experiences. So anyway, the whole trip, I was more active than I usually am, just because normally what am I doing? I'm sitting here at my desk doing nothing, just being lazy, and then I go train and I do cardio, but the rest of the day I'm doing absolutely nothing. So I was more active. I got a lot more steps than I usually do. I did no cardio, I did not lift, and I ate whatever the hell I wanted, which was the plan going in. And the plan was to eat whatever I wanted and just be reasonable about it. Was I reasonable about it? Kinda, yeah, more or less. I did go, a little heavy on a couple days and had some extra snacks that I certainly didn't need, but I'm like, I can, so why not? So, I came back and I'm up about 6 pounds, and I figured, well, we'll drop a good chunk of that pretty quickly. That hasn't happened yet. I mean, today was my third weigh-in. So Sunday was like, let's see what the sticker shock is. Okay, I'm up 6 pounds. I also had a pretty good sized drop just before we left. So otherwise I'd be down like 4.5 or up 4.5, but it was about 6. So, and then that's only fluctuated a couple of tenths yesterday and today. So I'm not too worried about it. I'm back in the routine. I feel much more rested now. Cardio was a little slog to get through this morning. I think just tired for who knows whatever reason, but lifts have been good. I lifted on Saturday when we got back, and Sunday, took yesterday off, and then back to it today. So one of the topics that I wanted to discuss here, and let me pull it up on the trusty phone here, because I made a note here. What was it? Returning to form after time off. Yeah. So how do you do it? One thing that we did is, after we landed, I immediately got right back to it. So the first thing I did after saying hi to the dogs and spending a little time with them is I unpacked everything, threw all my dirty clothes in the laundry, and all the clean clothes that I didn't take with me because they'd been sitting in the back of my car in my suitcase that didn't make it on the plane. Put them back. So put everything away. That's one of my favorite things to do when I get back from a trip, which is ridiculous. I realize it's ridiculous, which is to like erase all evidence that I was ever gone. So like get my bag, my empty luggage put back in the closet, and get my toiletries all put back away, get clothes sorted out, start laundry, do all that stuff. And I like to do that. Like if I finish all that stuff 30 minutes after I walk back in the door, I feel like I'm too slow. Like it's this weird compulsion that I have, and I can't explain it, but I just really like to erase all inclination that I was ever gone. I don't know why. It's weird. A therapist could probably have a field day with me digging into that. Maybe we'll do that. I'll have a therapist on. We'll do that live here in an upcoming episode. Who knows? And then, I went to the gym. I made my grocery list. I went to the gym and I hit the grocery store on the way back, and I did meal prep, and it was right back on it from there. So, the main thing is don't feel like, and this is what I hear a lot from people, whether it's, due to a vacation or if they were sick or who knows what. They were forced into some work travel. They miss a few days. They're off plan or whatever. And then it's like, well, I guess I'm starting over. You know what I never said? Well, I guess I'm starting over. You know why? Because I've been doing this for over 20 years, and compare 1 week off plan to 20 years of mostly being on plan. It's less than a drop in the bucket. The bucket doesn't even have any moisture in it. Like it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And all you need to do is say, well, that was fun. Cool. I had my fun. Now let's get back on it. And that's the big thing, is if you bring that mindset to it. And, one thing that I would say I do very, very good with, is not feeling guilty about shit. And one thing I often tell clients is, if you come back from a trip like this feeling guilty because you were off plan, the guilty feeling hurts way more than the being off plan did. Like you'll beat yourself up more from that, and that will cause more of a long-standing impact mentally than whatever you did, under the hood or physically. So just cut yourself some slack. Instead of feeling guilty about it, think about, like, okay, how might I approach that differently? If maybe I feel like I'm guilty because maybe I feel like I should have done something differently. What should you have done differently? And how would that have impacted your trip? Because, that trip wasn't cheap. It wasn't the world's most expensive vacation, but, places to stay, airplane tickets, rental car, this, that, and the other thing. It wasn't super cheap. So, if I'm going to have a trip like that, I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm not going to spend that time worrying about like, oh God, I wish I could be on my plan. No, the time for that is all the weeks out of the year that I'm not on vacation. Enjoy it. Don't binge and actively try to ruin your progress, but just because you're not on plan, focused on making progress every day, doesn't mean you are actively moving backwards either. So, and maybe you do a little bit. Who cares? So now I've got a few pounds to lose that I've already lost before. I don't really like to do that, but it was worth it. I had a good time, had some good food. I needed to get out and relax and recharge. And the value from that is something that doesn't show up on the scale. But it's something that has to be noted anyway. Like you get a huge value from that. So you've got to accept that, be okay with it, and then just say, all right, and then hit the reset switch when you get back and just aggressively switch back on plan. And you don't want to do one of those things where you come back and then you're like, okay, let me take a few days to kind of get back into it. No. Screw that. It's not a dimmer switch. It's a light switch. Flick it on and you're good to go. Like you come back in, you're refreshed, recharged. And trust me, like I said, this was not a relaxing trip. I did not come back physically relaxed, but I came back refreshed. Like just being away from home, being away from the desk, and all that, being away from the gym was nice. So in a way, there was a little physical relaxation because I wasn't training. So that was kind of nice. as much as I like doing that, it's also nice to not do it when you know you can get away with it and when it's time to take a little bit of a break. So, but then that time's over, and then just aggressively steer yourself back on. The other thing is consider all the variables that change when you're on a trip like that. So if you're not training, you're not doing cardio. Like for me, I was doing much more walking than I normally do. So does that offset any of that? Not really. I like to differentiate activity from cardio. So I was much more active, but I was much less cardio involved. Um, and the big thing, aside from like diet being off as well, and clearly like proteins and fats were way higher than normal. Protein was way lower than normal. So all those things were off. Calories were certainly higher than normal, I would say, but not obscenely so. It's just the ratios were off quite a bit. The other thing though is water was way off. Like I didn't drink hardly anything at all, which kind of makes sense when you're on vacation because, when you're at home or when you're, at work in your normal routine, you know where the nearest bathroom is. When you're in a foreign place, you don't necessarily know, or you're going to be spending a lot of time driving around or on planes. And fewer bathroom stops is always a bonus when you're doing that. So for that reason, I was kind of deliberately under my water intake, and then I'd bring a bunch in at one time. Like, okay, I haven't had any in 6 hours. Let me chug down 20 ounces. It was that kind of a thing. So water intake, I would say maybe the most aggressive I got one day was 50 to 60 ounces, something like that. That was about it. So it was very low for normal. Normal for me is about 1.5 gallons. So it was, less than a third of that on my best day. So that's the biggest thing, I think. And if I remain active on that here, then I think we'll see things kind of come back to normal within a couple of more days here. It's one of those things where I'm going to wake up in a day or two and I'm going to drop 3 pounds. I just kind of know that. So watch online. I'll be transparent about that. So that was one thing here. I had another note for a topic on my phone, and I'm not sure what I meant with this. So I'm going to save it because it'll come back to me at some point. So so we'll get back to that at a future date here. Now, I think, man, so I'm recording this video on Zoom. The problem here is this doesn't tell me how long it's been recording for. So I feel like if I push any button, it's going to fuck it up. So I'm not going to do that. I don't know how long I've been talking for. Always when I'm recording an episode, I've got the little counter in my app, in my voice recording app, that shows me how long it's been. But this doesn't have that, so I don't know. This episode might end up being 25 minutes or an hour and a half, and I'm not going to have any idea until we're done. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things here. These were additional comments from the Drop Set's most avid listener, apparently, or its most inquisitive. I'm not sure. Grace. Thank you, Grace. Once again, she has been responsible for many of our conversation topics of lately. So she had a few more. We had our check-in yesterday, as we normally do. And so along with that check-in, she's like, hey, podcast questions for you. Here you go. So one of her questions was, what has been your proudest moment as a coach? And while I saw this question yesterday, I didn't really stop to think about it. And I'm not really thinking about it until right now. So now you get to hear me kind of process this and think about it and come to a conclusion. I don't really know what that is. I would say the things that give me the most satisfaction are, not surprisingly, the things that give my clients the most satisfaction. So somebody might, win a pro card, but for somebody else, just the fact that they did a show might be the biggest victory they ever could have possibly imagined for themselves. And so it's really like, how does a person feel after they hit whatever their goal is? That always kind of makes it hit harder. I would say, man, there are a couple of moments that stick out. That's a tricky one. Sometimes, I really struggle tooting my own horn. I really do. So, I'm missing a lot of stuff here. I know that. Whenever we go into, if somebody's going into a show and they are, they've done a show before and they go in with a clear objective, like I want to show up, and not even worried about placing, but I want to be improved in X, Y, or Z, like as far as their presentation is concerned, and we hit that. I feel like that's me coming through on my promise to them to help them fix whatever that was in the past. So I always like that. I get a lot out of that. I don't really get too much out of placings. Like I don't worry about low placings, and I don't really get too overly excited about high placings just because that's all objective. And I think the satisfaction or the disappointment that somebody might feel from that is something that kind of fades, but it's the sensation of how somebody feels about something that's more lasting that is big on me. Like somebody who is working towards a wedding date and like they have their dress fit and they look at themselves in the mirror and they're like, I can't believe this is me. Like that's the shit that kind of hits me harder because I know what a big deal it is for them. And when somebody like is clearly like so focused on their goal that they are not going to let anything pull them off, and then they hit their goal, they hit their target, whatever it is, that's huge because I know how hard they worked to make that happen. Because I work with a lot of people who make it look easy every week, like they're just perfect every week. It's certainly not the expectation, it's not the norm, but I do work with a good number of people who do that. But I know it's not easy. Just because they make it look easy in what they report to me, that doesn't mean that it is. And so I realize that, and that's always satisfying too when we hit a goal, just because I know that they've done everything that they possibly could have to do it. So it's always nice when things work out, right? If I had to pick one moment though, it would, man, it'd probably be when my client Trish won her pro card. That was a big deal. That was a big deal when she won her IFBB pro card, just because she'd taken a couple of stabs at it and finally came through and had a class win at Masters Nationals. She won Masters 50 plus women's physique and got her pro card. And it wasn't so much that she got it, but I talked with her on the phone after that, and like it was a while back. I mean, not like 10 years ago or anything like that, but it was, was it 2020? I think 2021. I don't know. The years kind of blur together for me. But I can still remember how she sounded on the phone after that. Like you can just tell like what a big freaking deal that was. And that was awesome. So and Trish is one of the very, very few clients that I have that I've actually met in person as well. Like she made the trip here to Knoxville one day and we got in a workout together, which was super cool. So to be able to kind of to help her with that, and we took a few attempts at shows, and this wasn't her first national show, and just being able to pull it together, and again, a lot of it's just circumstances. Who else is going to be there that day? You just don't know. So it wasn't the pro card win, it wasn't the card specifically that was the big deal, but it was hearing her afterwards, which was, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that sticks in your head. So if I had to pick something, I'd say probably that. I mean, it's a tough choice, but that's what I'm going to go with. So very good question. Very good question. Grace also asks, what are the symptoms of a slow metabolism and how do you address that? That is a great question. So this is, reverse dieting in a nutshell. What are the symptoms? Well, the symptoms are, and this is, hold on, I need to recharge here briefly. This podcast episode is sponsored by C4 Midnight Cherry, specifically the only C4 flavor that is worth a damn. It is not sponsored. However, C4, who's the company that makes this? Is it Cellucor, or am I getting things confused? I have the wrong glasses on. I can't read this. Jesus. Oh my God. I really can't read this. Do I have my other glasses here? Oh, I think I do. Hold on. This really doesn't matter, but I'm way too invested in it now. I can't pull back. Hold on. Switching from computer glasses to the readers. These are the way too strong readers. Okay. Wow, I can read this. Yeah. Trademark and distributed by Nutrabolt. What the fuck is Nutrabolt? What happened to I thought Cellucor made C4. I don't see any mention of the word Cellucor anywhere on this can. What's this? I don't want to turn it too far sideways so it doesn't spill. Trademark of DuPont. Used under license to Nutrabolt. What the hell? DuPont. Good Lord. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Anyway, if Nutrabolt wants to sponsor the podcast, I'll be happy to accept your sponsorship. But not if you make me promote those god-awful Skittles flavors or your strawberry watermelon or whatever the blue horrible crap is. So Midnight Cherry, among all the energy drinks, this is one of the top 3. But this flavor only. This is the only one. All the other ones are shit. So that being said, I don't think they're going to sponsor this podcast. But hey, if you're okay with a conditional sponsorship, the only flavor I'm going to talk about is Midnight Cherry. I'm your man. Man, the rest of them suck. They're toilet water. Okay, now I can't read the computer. Where was I? Oh, yes. Slow metabolism. So this is where it gets tricky for me as a coach. That was the worst sponsored product segment ever, by the way. That'll probably never happen again. Derby is clearly amused. Tickle her little head. Oh, she's out. She's out. I'm glad that everyone's remained quiet. I don't know where Taz is. He's upstairs moping somewhere probably. So I feel like she's here really just to help attract views. You know, I mean, any video with a puppy in it, it's clickbait, right? So she's probably going to make it into the thumbnail, I would imagine, for this episode. We'll see. Slow metabolism. It's tricky for me as a coach because the signs of a slow metabolism are if somebody is doing all the work that they're supposed to do, and we are pushing aggressively on a deficit and doing a lot of work, and nothing's really happening, that's a slow metabolism. Where it gets tricky for me is, is somebody really doing everything that they're supposed to be doing? And sometimes, as a coach, there's a few camps that people can fall into here. Sometimes you get somebody who, and this is rare, but it does happen. And that's somebody who just is not transparent or honest with themselves or with their coach. I've had some of those clients in the past who have outed themselves and been like, yeah, actually, I haven't been tracking my macros for the past 5 weeks, and all of the weigh-ins that I've been putting in and all the data and the numbers, I've just been making those up. Like, okay, cool. Thanks for coming clean. You're fired. Lose my email. Bye. I just have no. At that point, I mean, people will often say like, oh, I don't want to waste your time, blah, 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 as far as like, a bad check-in, so we're just going to skip this week, or I can't put 100% into my plan, so I'm just going to bail on coaching for right now. I don't want to waste your time. Like, you're not wasting my time. Give me a break. That is wasting my time. When you're having me look at bullshit data that you're making up that is not a reflection of reality, I can't describe how little patience I have for that. Just don't go there. That tells me that there's just nothing about the process that you take seriously. That's a problem for me. So that's why I always like it. Like if somebody's off plan and their tracking spreadsheet that they send to me, it just looks like a fucking mess. It's like, at least they're honest. I like it. And I'll comment on that. Like, wow, these macros for these few days here, these are hideous, but kudos on you for tracking it all. Like at that point, they're not made up, because if they were made up, they'd probably make up something that didn't look that bad. Like, yes, I really did eat 620 grams of carbs as opposed to 185. Okay, cool. Kudos to your accounting. Nice work. Now let's fix it. So is somebody following, but you get some people that are subversive about it like that. And then you get a lot of people who are making mistakes that they don't even know about. And this is where, as a coach who works online, I think a lot of coaches are really quick to accuse people of being in the former camp when really they're in the latter. I hear this happen all the time when people will reach out to me and they'll talk about their experience with the previous coach, and like, I wasn't making any progress, and the coach just said it was because I wasn't following the plan. And it's like, I was. And if somebody is writing me that email, I am inclined to believe them. Like, yeah, I bet you were. Otherwise, you wouldn't be protesting in an email to a new coach that you have not started working with yet. So I know that a lot of coaches are quick to point the finger to somebody like, you're just not following the plan. It's like, well, maybe they're trying to, and they think they are, but they're making a mistake somewhere along the lines. Maybe they're measuring their rice as dry when it needs to be cooked, something like that, which is going to mean if they're having rice for all their meals, they're going to basically double their carb number. That could be a real reason why somebody isn't making progress. I just heard a lawnmower start up, which could be the yard people. Oh, maybe that's just our fan. I don't know. We'll see. If the dog, look at Derby right there. You people on the audio only version, you're missing out because that is one cute freaking dog right there. Derby. Oh, just a little movement of the eye and back shut again. All right. You go to sleep, girl. So yeah, I'm never going to point that finger at people because to this day, I still, even though I've been burned a couple of times, I'm still going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And then rather than saying, well, clearly you're just not following the plan, what I want to do is dig in a little bit deeper and say, are there elements here that we're just not following correctly, but you think we are? And so that's when I start asking questions about how things are tracked. That's when I'll start asking for food logs to see if I can find some significant accounting errors. Now, clearly, if we're off by a couple of grams of this or that here and there, that's not a big deal. Okay, you're tracking 130 grams of carbs as opposed to 120. Are you on plan? Well, not really, but are those 10 grams making a difference? No. If that's the difference between success and being stuck, then we've got other problems, and those problems would be slow metabolism, likely. The other things would be how hard are you working? So if you're slacking on your cardio, like you could be logging a lot of minutes, but they might be really unproductive minutes. Cardio should feel like work. And if it doesn't, then you're not getting your money's worth out of it. So you just got to work a little bit harder. How are you training? This is the big variable. I can't be in the gym with you, but the intensity with which you train is so critical, especially when it comes to driving up your metabolism. So if you're like still in the beginning stages of your gym life, and I would say like if you're within the first year or two of training, you're still a beginner, regardless of what you might think, you're still new at this and you still got a lot to learn. The big thing isn't necessarily like form or how do you do things correctly, but it's learning how to lift with intensity. And so I'm always requesting videos from people to make sure like, we're on the right ballpark, in the right ballpark as far as intensity is concerned, to make sure that we're training with an appropriate level of intensity and that things are hard. And so one of the things that I always watch for in videos is I look at people's faces. And if it looks like, if I cover up everything but your face and I can't tell if you're performing an exercise or reading a book, that's an intensity problem. And I see a lot of that from people who are relatively new to lifting. And so that's when we're like, we just got to push it. We got to push the weight. I need to see your form breakdown. I got to see you make a grimace. I want to hear a grunt. I want to hear you yell, fuck, after a set when you put the weight down. That's how I know we're kind of where we need to be. If your face isn't turning red during a set, if you're able to maintain a totally stoic expression and not even blink from, rep 1 to rep 10 in a set, then no, we don't have a metabolism issue. We have an intensity issue, and intensity drives results. So you create more of a metabolic demand on your body the harder you work. So there are a lot of things that need to be addressed before I start to think about slow metabolism. But also, like, I'm always looking at all those things from the word go. And those are things that I'm always considering, always asking questions about, and always trying to dig in on. So doing a macro audit on somebody, if they're following a macro-based plan, and seeing how they're tracking things, because it's very common to have tracking errors. If you're not intimately familiar with the correct macronutrient values of certain foods, you could be looking through the MyFitnessPal food database or Lose It or whatever, and pull up some database that has bogus numbers or just the wrong entry, cooked versus dry, raw, blah, 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 all those things. So there could be some real numerical discrepancies in there. You might have a portion tagged wrong or something like that. All kinds of things that could be errors there. So you got to fix that stuff. You got to gut check your cardio intensity. You've got to gut check your training intensity. And then also I'm going to be looking at, blood work. Like, when was the last time we had a blood panel done? How's your thyroid? What are your hormones doing? Are you getting enough rest? I mean, it sounds dumb, and this is not the sexy answer that anybody wants, but sometimes, if somebody is pushing really hard and they're doing everything right, and, still just things are off, like, oh, well, you're getting 4 hours of sleep a night, get 7, and let's try this again. That could be all it takes, so beyond that, I mean, the symptoms of a slow metabolism are doing all of those things right and still not making any progress. And specifically when it comes to leaning out, still not dropping any weight. So that's when metabolism really matters. And usually metabolism or metabolic health isn't a huge issue during the off season, because the way that you fix it, how do you address that, is to eat. And during the off season, we're usually eating pretty well, so less of a concern there. But as you diet and the longer you stay in a deficit, your metabolism does necessarily drop over time. The leaner you get, the more your metabolism slows down. So it's important that you keep it revved up as you're dieting. Most people do that through refeeds, cheat meals, something like that. Sometimes you find people who don't need that and they respond okay without it. I would still challenge that most people will respond better with it. So it's one of those things where you might take a perceived step backwards in that you do a refeed or a cheat meal and the scale might go up, but you do that so that the next 5 steps forward will be much easier and more efficient. So, but yeah, just feed yourself, but feed yourself reasonably. You have to keep in mind that you're still in a lean out phase. You still need to maintain a deficit for the most part. So you can't just say like, well, I'm just going to eat an extra 700 calories every day. No, at that point, you're probably not in a deficit anymore. So you're not going to lean out. You can also do a little less work, take a break from cardio. So I'll be in a lean out phase with somebody, recognize that we're not getting anywhere, and then say, okay, we're switching gears here. We're going to focus on your metabolic health for a bit, which means we're going to eat a little bit more. We're going to do less cardio, and we're going to see if we can maintain your weight right around where it is. We're going to see if we can be in basically a scale-related holding pattern while we focus on getting your other markers moving upwards. So if you can maintain on higher calories, then that's another indication that maybe you just weren't working hard enough beforehand. Like the physical work needs to be harder, either more cardio or more intense lifting. So that's how I would approach it. So, and then Grace also had this other question here, which is a good one here. So once again, another sponsored break by C4 Nutrabolt, all flavors, toilet water except for Midnight Cherry. But man, that Midnight Cherry is just money. Oh my God. Somebody should ask here. Let me pose the question. Hey, Darren, I have a podcast question for you. What are your 3 favorite flavors of energy drinks? Okay, now this is a subject that I have some level of passion about, so let's go over here. I will resist the urge to turn this into a prop segment here where I bring everything over from the fridge, because I have a selection in there. Top three in no particular order. No, we're going to do a particular order. We're going to do a particular order here. Number 1, the GOAT, and always will be the GOAT, would be Monster Zero Ultra Rosé. There's nothing better than that. It's the pink can. It's kind of hard to find. I can find it in convenience stores every now and then, but I just order it by the case from Amazon. How pathetic is that? But it is the best. Clearly, it is the best. There is no second. Well, there is a second, but it's a distant second. But that second would be Ghost Swedish Fish. Man, that is some special stuff right there. Number 3, you might think I'm going for this Midnight Cherry. You're wrong. No, not Midnight Cherry. It's top 5 probably, but it's not top 3. Number 3 is going to be Rain Orange Dreamsicle. Yeah, I said it. I don't apologize for it. That's it. Those are the 3. Ultra Rosé, Swedish Fish, Orange Dreamsicle. 1, 2, and 3. Gold, silver, bronze. That's it. Thank you for asking, whoever posed that question. So Grace's question, though, and I think this will probably be the last topic for today. This is a good one, and I haven't thought too much about this, so this is going to be a little off the cuff as well. I know everybody's like, hey, Darren, thanks for researching these things in depth before you started recording. I think it's more interesting to explore these live. What can I say? Grace says, I think it would be cool if you ran down a list of exercises that have a reputation for causing pain and addressing their viability or common practices that cause that pain. Okay. For example, she says, skull crushers have a reputation for causing elbow pain, and leg extensions for knee pain. Maybe. Are these great exercises? What causes the pain, etc.? So, I would say I'm not a physical therapist, so what causes the pain? You would be getting a very, very poor layman's explanation of that. So I will probably skip that. But let's run through it here. Let's run through it. So, let's go. Let's go top to bottom. No, bottom to the top, shall we? So I'm going to write a list here of muscle groups, and we're gonna talk about everything here. So, and I might say, I might rephrase her question a little bit, and rather than say something that has a reputation for causing pain, since I can't really get into the cause of that because it's not my area of expertise, I might say exercises that people find problematic. And sometimes that would be because of pain. Sometimes it could be because of equipment issues, not lack of equipment. Like you can't say a T-bar row is problematic because your gym doesn't have one. No. We'll get into everything else there. Okay, abs, and then we'll do back, chest, shoulders. I'll do biceps and triceps separately. Okay, so we got a lot of groups to dig into here. So let's get to it. First one, calves. Usually calf stuff is okay. There are very select circumstances where calf exercises are going to cause an issue, and usually it's somebody that has foot issues, like they've injured their foot, they've rolled an ankle or something like that, and they just can't bear a lot of weight on calf exercises. So usually those are situational. You've only got a handful of calf exercises anyway. You've got leg press, standing, seated, donkey calf raise. They're all the same movement basically. It's just, is your knee extended or flexed, is your hip extended or flexed. So all of those exist for a certain reason. So like if you have a flexed hip, flexed knee, that's a seated calf raise. If you have a flexed hip, flexed hip, extended knee, that's a calf raise leg press. Is that what I just said? No, seated, and then calf raise leg press. If you have extended hip and extended knee, that's a standing calf raise. And if you have extended hip and flexed knee, that is not a calf exercise that we do, but that would be like if you're going to do calf raises in a bridge position, I guess would do that. That might be worth trying. I've never tried that before, but that's the only combination that otherwise is left untouched. So, and a donkey calf raise is the same thing as a calf raise leg press, just on a different angle, but the same combination of joint flexion and extension. So calves are pretty much in the free and clear unless you have some kind of an acute issue, which will be true for a lot of these. But with that, it's like, foot or ankle problems. Yeah. Usually those are fairly short-lived, just because those are areas where you're not going to accept chronic pain. Like people deal with knee pain all the time. If you've got ankle or foot pain, you're probably in a boot of some sort. So it's one of those things that it's not as well tolerated. Quads. So, and I might kind of group together quads and hamstrings here a little bit, and maybe glutes as well. But quads, Grace mentioned leg extensions. Usually leg extensions are good to go unless somebody has a problematic knee. And oftentimes how they execute that movement is a big part of it as well. So you want to take it with relatively low weight and take it nice and slow. There shouldn't be any ballistic part of the movement where you're like, aggressively starting a rep or anything like that. So you can control the weight up, control the weight down, no issues usually, unless somebody does have outstanding knee issues. Squats are a very common one. Any variety of squats can cause issues if somebody has problems with their knees or hips or lower back. That's another one where it's like, let's find a variation. Most of the time on that, it's a form issue. We make some corrections to form. We have somebody go from a high bar squat, which is almost everybody's default because they don't know any better, to a low bar squat. That fixes a lot of issues around the hip and lower back. Issues with stance. and limitations in ankle mobility will often address knee pain as well as glute flexibility. So usually these are things where we don't necessarily need to change the movement. We need to fix your body a little bit, like how you do the rep, but also general mobility issues or flexibility issues. If those are present, then they're going to cause issues for squats, especially when you get at depth. Another good thing for squats is to check and see how deep you can get without any weight. If you are just standing there, you're standing there and I say, go down and, take a crap on the floor. What does it look like when you squat all the way down? Like you're going to do that. Like I want to see if somebody can get ass to grass and keep their feet flat on the floor. And if they can, great. What's your stance look like there? That's probably what your stance should look like when you squat. And if they can't, then we look at what's the limiting factor. And oftentimes that's going to be ankle mobility. And sometimes it could just be muscle tightness too. So most squat issues, unless they are an existing back injury is the most common, are fixable. And if somebody has a back injury and a squat, then doing a differently loaded squat can help a ton. A machine squat, belt squat is a good option as well. Otherwise, quad and hamstring together, maybe glutes. Lunges give people a lot of fits. Again, usually due to outstanding knee issues. That's the most common cause there. And usually a variety of a lunge, a different alternative, like a stationary split squat, either freestanding or in the Smith machine can help. A lot of Smith machine exercises are problematic simply because especially a split squat, it depends so much on where your feet are. Imagine you're doing a split squat just holding dumbbells, and then you do a split squat where you're in a Smith machine. Well, with dumbbells, you just grab the dumbbells and you get your stance and go. In the Smith machine, where the weight is in a fixed spot. It doesn't move. It goes up and down, but that's it. Which means that your feet have to be in exactly the right spot to accommodate where the weight is. So I will usually see it where people have their stance either too compact or they're too far back in the Smith machine so that the weight's too far out in front of them and it creates weird things. A lot of people have a good body awareness, and after a rep, they can realize like, oh, I need to move forward. And some people don't, and they're just like, ugh, and it just looks horribly uncomfortable to watch them do that. That's simply because the weight can't shift itself to compensate for where your center of gravity is, because it's in the Smith machine. With a dumbbell or a barbell or anything else, that's a non-issue. So, but usually some variation on a lunge will take care of any issues there. With glute, hamstring, usually a deadlift variety is the thing that I would consider most problematic. And again, that's usually an experience issue. A lot of people just don't have to lift. So they don't go very heavy on it. In certain instances, I think standard, good, safe practice. But then because they're not going very heavy on it, they don't really get much benefit from it. Deadlift is something that you kind of have to have a little bit of weight on there. If you're trying to deadlift 95 pounds and you expect to see much from that, you're not going to get a whole lot from it. So that's the main one that I can think of there. Other glute ham stuff. Curl machines, seated curl machines or lying curl machines, especially if you're outside of a certain height range, can be challenging to get working right. And sometimes they just pull on muscles and tendons and joints weirdly, and they just don't feel good. And I get that a lot from people. And the solution there is just, there's a bunch of knee flexion exercises. Just pick a different one. So a stability ball curl, you can do a standing curl with a cable. If the seated curl is bothering you, try lying, vice versa as well. So you got a lot of options there. A Nordic curl is another good option too. A lot of times with a seated or lying curl, it's just about getting the machine adjusted correctly. And most of them will adjust to fit most people. I hear a lot where somebody will say, I can't do a seated curl because I'm too short and I don't fit the machine. Like, you do, we just have to find it. And so let me see it. Let me see. I've never seen anybody that was too short to fit in a seated curl machine and make it effective. That being said, also, it could be like, if you're really short and you're stuck in a gym that just has a really, really shitty seated curl machine, yeah, it might just be the confluence of all the wrong circumstances that yep, that's not going to work. You need a different curl machine. So problem isn't you, problem is faulty machinery that just sucks. So abs, decline bench sit up. This just came up this morning with somebody, actually. I don't know what it is about that, but that movement gives a lot of people fits. and it's like back issues specifically. I think a lot of the times it has more to do with like getting set up in the weird, very awkward decline bench than it does anything else. But nonetheless, that's one that I tend to program very little just because of that. And also, a lot of gyms just are not really well equipped with decline benches, and if they do have one, it's not necessarily the greatest quality. So, back exercises. Let's see what back exercises cause issues as far as being problematic. With back exercises, the biggest issue there is really just execution. And a lot of people, I would say a majority of people, really struggle to execute back movements properly. You can't see what you're doing. You can't see the muscles working like you can on other things. Like if you're doing leg extensions, you can pull up your shorts and see your quads moving under your skin. It's kind of easy to visualize what's going on there. With your back, it's difficult to take your arms out of the equation. Your grip fatigues. That's why I always tell people to use lifting straps, whether you feel you need them or not. Irrelevant, just use them anyway. There's so many things that go into making back difficult to train. It's complex. There's a lot of layers. It works in multiple planes. You've got vertical pulls. You've got horizontal pulls. Horizontal, you like that? So there's a lot of things there that can make back exercises really challenging. And then, even the same exercise, you adjust the grip and now suddenly it's hitting things totally different. And I think that's just confounding for a lot of people to try and understand what am I supposed to be doing here? I don't know, whatever. I'm just going to pull and, see what happens, which is fair, but it's always good to know a little bit more about what you're trying to accomplish for sure. What else for back? Pull-ups are a big struggle for a lot of people, of course. That's commonly the case. And that a lot of that is a technique issue as much as anything else. Sometimes it is a strength issue for sure. But just remember, a pull-up's a skill, and even if you have the requisite strength to do a bunch of pull-ups, if your skill isn't there, you're going to struggle with them. And conversely, if you don't have a lot of strength and your technique is really good, you're still going to struggle with them because you don't have a lot of strength. But you got to resist the urge to let your arms take over, because your arms aren't really strong enough to pull your body up. Your back is. You got to make sure that you're using your back. Pullovers would be another one. Sometimes it's just people struggle if they have limitations with shoulder mobility. But I find that even though it's essentially the same movement, doing a straight arm pull down with a cable is better for people than a pullover. I will typically sub out a pullover for a straight arm pull down simply because I feel like I can control the weight better. It's also universally easier for me to set up and just get into and out of quickly. So I'll usually pick it for that reason. But if I have a good pullover machine, I'm going to use that because that's money. I love that. Let's see, chest. Just about any chest exercise can cause people fits just because shoulder problems are very, very common. And if you have shoulder problems, then most chest exercises are probably going to give you fits, realistically. So anything in specific, flies, dumbbell flies, if you go for too much range of motion, they can certainly cause issues. Like too much in the stretch position can cause shoulder problems. They can really tweak it over time. Just going too heavy. I mean, a lot of it's just ego related with bench pressing. You go too heavy and you're going to hurt something, but you're probably not going to hurt it severely enough to require surgery. You're just going to hurt enough to the point where if you continue to do what you're doing and you don't give it time to recover, it's going to continue to be pissed off for years. So don't ego lift. That's the moral of that story. Kind of drawn a blank for the rest of chest stuff. Shoulders, presses, overhead presses are the most common limitation that I get from people, usually due to some kind of pre-existing shoulder condition. A lot of people are if they have a shoulder issue, they've been told by a doctor that they shouldn't overhead press anymore, which could be valid. I also think that overhead pressing is one of those things, like I like to do it, I like to program it in, but if somebody said, hey Darren, there's a new law that's been passed and you can't program overhead presses for shoulders anymore, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. We got a lot of other stuff we can do. So I wouldn't miss it too much. One thing about the late John Meadows and most of his shoulder programming that he has available online, it's devoid of overhead presses. It's all isolation movements and rows for shoulders. That's it. So I think I don't know if he suffered from that himself, but he definitely adopted that, like, okay, let's keep overhead pressing to an absolute minimum kind of philosophy. Biceps and triceps, Grace mentioned skull crushers for elbows. Keeping the weight lighter on that is usually the answer, but also checking your technique and seeing like how your humerus is positioned, your upper arm bone, like what degree of shoulder extension and flexion you have throughout the movement can help place more or less stress on the elbow. Dips are an issue, both with shoulders and elbows. Whether you're going for tricep emphasis or chest emphasis, either way is problematic. Solution on that is, if somebody has a problem with body weight dips, sometimes it's a strength issue, like with pull-ups as well. You could do them assisted. Sometimes people still struggle with that. Bench dips, okay alternative. Machine dips, much better. It's just not every gym has a dip machine, like a weighted, plate-loaded, or selectorized dip machine. But that'd be a good option. Oh, hey, Derby. What you doing, girl? Derby. Hello. Hi. Look at that face. My goodness. That is one cute freaking dog. I know I've said it before, but I'm going to keep saying it. She's really stinking cute. Anything else for triceps? Most of the rest of it's pretty good. For biceps, not too much gets to them. A lot of people, I would be one of these actually that struggles with reverse curls. Like it's not really the muscle pain, but there's some. It's an issue with the grip. To be honest with you. And it's the same if I go reverse curl or if I do a supinated curl or a reverse grip pull down, same grip. So supinated pull down with a straight bar. Like there's a muscle in my forearm that gets super tight to the point where a few reps in, it's painful lactic acid burning. Look at her going after that bed. You get it, girl. You get it. I don't know what she's trying to do there, but man, that's freaking funny. Get it. Make that nest, girl. Make it comfy. Make that bed your bitch. How many times in a circle now is that? And then she's gonna. Oh, I thought she was ready to just plop down. Oh, she giving it the what for? Pulling on it with the teeth. What are you doing? And right back to where she started. Eventually, and there she goes. All right, had to make it just perfect. Just perfect. Nothing changed, girl. It's just where you were. Oh, that's funny. That's going to be the clip from this podcast episode, I think, that I air online. I don't know what it is. The PT that I saw in 2021 last year explained it to me, but I didn't take good enough mental notes, so I don't remember. There are stretches that I should be doing to help that muscle loosen up a little bit, but with a supinated grip or with a reverse curl, it's the same area that's under tension, and it just gets so painful it becomes the limiting factor. Like if I'm doing a reverse grip pull down with a straight bar, I can only do 4 or 5 reps, and then it's like, oh my god, like I have to stop the set. It's that bad. If I do it with an easy bar, it's better. Same thing with curls as well. So other than that, biceps are pretty easy peasy. Most people don't struggle with them too much until they start swinging it, and then suddenly it's like, my shoulder hurts when I'm doing a bicep curl. It's a good sign that you're probably using too much weight. So, oh, whew, that was pretty exhaustive. Okay, I'm actually exhausted and beat right now. So, well, a couple other notes for you here, really quick. I have huge projects in the works. I am relaunching the website with a whole new e-commerce system online, which is what we will use to what I will be using to have workout programs for sale, which they are now, but it'll be under a different system, and then also merch, which will be expanding beyond just the shirts that I have available now. Also, I'm going to be doing some logo updates. The logo is not changing, but the specific artwork files and some of the colors are. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Just, if there comes a week in the coming weeks here where I miss a podcast episode or something like that, it's probably because I'm knee deep into the website. And also because of reasons, I don't know, I am not able to edit my newly designed website offline. So I have to kind of play around with my theme options a little bit, and figure out what I want to do, and then make it live, and then implement all of those. Like it won't let me, because there's some kind of a stupid problem with it. It won't let me work on it in a staging site. So I haven't completely given that up yet. It's just, it's going to be a phone call that probably won't have a positive answer. So I'm not looking forward to it, but, once I decide to go live with it, it's going to be a mad scramble for a few days to make sure that all the bits and pieces are there. So bear with me on that. There's just could be some weird stuff coming up. I'll try to keep everybody updated as much as I can. So check me out on Instagram at Darren_star to stay on the up and up there. Go to thedropset.com, vote on the poll. What are your thoughts on extended breaks of more than 2 consecutive days from training? Let me know what you think there. Otherwise, email me, Darren at 5starfitness.com if you have ideas for guests to interview, bonus points if you can help me make a connection to said guest, and also just general ideas, topics for discussion for here, and we'll cover those later. So that is all I got. So I will peace out. This has been episode 209. Thank you all for listening. As always, don't forget to share with your friends, tag me in your posts, leave the podcast a rating or a review whenever you're able to.